All right, so this morning we're going to go ahead and we're going to do live lobster fabrication. Our lobsters come from our purveyor, and like we said, they're shipped to us on Monday morning, and then they got to us here Wednesday. So these came from Maine like that. So normally when you get them, they're going to come in, they're going to have little freezer packs with them, okay? I'm not keeping these because I got a whole thing of these in the walk-in freezer, so I don't need these, right? And then they put this on top, normally damp, okay? Cardboard and that, and then this, and seaweed here, okay? So then here's our lobster, okay? Little lively guy, right? Little tail moving there and everything, the little swimmerettes, the claws, okay? These are what we call a 1 1/4 pound lobsters, or sometimes called chick lobsters when they're this size, okay? The reason why we have to get them purchased alive to use them is because if these die, the bacteria in them starts to disintegrate the flesh, and it goes real quick. So you have to have them alive. So if you ever get lobsters, you can't just let them hang out. They could stay in there another day or so, you know, and be okay. But after that, then all bets are off. So that's why you want to get them when they're nice and lively looking, right? And if you look at the coloring on the lobster, notice here you see little blues and colors there. Sometimes, yeah, right there is a good example of that blue color, right? So sometimes the lobstermen have caught lobsters that hold shell, whole body's blue, okay? Which is a unique thing, sometimes all yellow. But this is the normal coloring of the lobster when it's alive, okay? Obviously when we cook it, this carapace then will turn that red color that you're used to seeing in a lobster. But you gotta just stay cold and moist. That's what the seaweed's for, okay? Now, a couple things about lobsters, and if you watched the video last night, you know some things already about this, okay? Most of the time when the fishermen are going out and capturing these lobsters, they have the lobster cages that they put in. They put a bait bag in there. They put a hole that the lobster will crawl through, but they can't seem to figure out how to go back through that same hole and out, okay? Because the hole kind of gets narrow, but they squeeze themselves in because they're attracted to the bait bag, and once they're in there, that's it, right? So the lobstermen will bring these up to the surface. They have little buoys out there. They're coded for their fishing fleet, and that lobsterman will go and pull that buoy up and go through the trap and look at the lobsters he has. Now, they measure them from this part, from the snout to here, and they gotta meet a certain requirement. Off the top of my head, I can't think of what it is right now. It's like 4 inches plus, right? And when they have that, they'll have a little gauge and they put it on here and they measure it, boom, then the lobster is then taken and they can keep that one. If it doesn't meet that, it's too small, back into the water, okay? The other thing is that they're gonna be looking for female lobsters that could be considered breeders, okay? The type, then that's, again, the continuing of the species. So the fishermen have to know what lobster is a female, and is this the type of female that's going to be producing eggs that will continue the species. So when you get your lobsters, there's all these that we call here, you know, you have the claws on them, okay? One's a pincer claw, this smaller one. This is the crushing claw, okay? This one holds the food a lot of times for the lobster. This one here is the one that crushes it, okay? So the reason why we have the bands on here is what? Do you remember? Anybody know why they put the rubber bands on here? That's right, they're cannibalistic. So if you put them in a tank without these on here, what'll happen is that the bigger ones will eat the smaller ones, all right? They just do. So they put that on there. Also, it keeps you from getting pinched, all right? So that happens too. So they used to put a little peg, a little wooden peg when I was a kid growing up. You got the lobsters, there's a wooden peg in here they put in here, they drove into the flesh. But that was a bad thing because you were messing up the flesh and causing bacteria to get in there and stuff. So it took them a while to figure that out, but that wasn't a good thing. And now they just have this little apparatus, looks like a pair of pliers, and you put the rubber band, you squeeze it, it opens it up, and then you just put it right and let go, and it puts that rubber band around the claws like that. Okay, so let's go back to what is a male and a female. These little fins here are called swimmerets, and that's how the lobster when he's in the water goes like that. He propulses his tail like this and pushes you backwards. The only time they do forward is if they're sitting on the bottom, they'll crawl forward, but when they're trying to escape, they're going to jet propulsion backwards, okay? And those little swimmerets help them with that. But the first set, so here's their legs, and the appendages here. The first little set of swimmerets right here are the ones that are going to tell you if it's a male or a female, okay? So when we look at this first set, they're kind of bony. You want to get in here, look at that. These little swimmerets right here. All of you, just grab that so you know what I'm talking about. Just grab it. It's bony, right? It's stiff, all right? It's what it's supposed to be, okay? So we have that like that, right? So this is a male. This is a male lobster, right? We'll go through these. There could be, sometimes they'll give you a female in there, all right? And right now, the ones that I'm picking up here, I don't see a female there. Sometimes we'll get one. Oh yeah, nope. Thought it was. So we're gonna look through them. The females, they have almost a feathery type So we got one right here. This is a young female then. Look at these. Feel those now. Grab those. You see what I'm talking about. See? So this is a young female, right? You wouldn't be able to tell the difference, like that, right? You can't, right? So in order what we want to do today for the lobster, we're going to get multiple things from it. There's meat here in the claw, in the arms, okay? Obviously the meat in the tail, okay? And then sometimes when you process these, you'll find eggs in there starting to develop, in the female, and it looks dark. But then when you cook it, it gets this really bright orangish red color, okay? And it's called coral, okay? And a lot of people use that then as garnish on top of dishes or on top of the lobster dish, whichever you're doing. You sprinkle those lobster eggs on it, like caviar, but it's cooked, okay? So those are some of the things. And the other thing that we use is we don't take the meat off and then throw the shell away. We'll keep all this shell because we're going to turn around and use the shell to make lobster bisque. Okay, so that's probably one of the things that we're going to be making after this, plus some other stuff. All right. So lobster, if you didn't know, back in the day was a nuisance catch for fishermen. They were considered garbage. All right. And then somebody figured out, oh my God, these things actually taste pretty good, and so then now they become one of the more expensive items in the ocean, okay? This is a cold water lobster, okay? Grown off the coast of Maine, okay? Up in the New England states and Canada, where cold water is. There is a cousin that they have that's down in the Caribbean and in Florida. It's called a spiny lobster. The spiny lobster has no claws, just a bigger tail on it, okay? There's no claw appendages on it like that. So the only thing really on that people get is the tail being on that one, and obviously use the body like that. Now, so when we process these, back in the day, you would get a case, you'd have lobsters like this, okay? If you ever gone to Red Lobster, anybody ever go to Red Lobster? You walk in there, you used to have a tank there with the lobsters, and you pick the one that you want, and everything. And that's how they kept them alive for long periods of time. But most times in restaurants, they don't have, hotels and stuff, they don't have a tank. They come in like this, you process them, and then you use them. And so what most of the chefs have to do is keep them cold, just like this. You don't want to put them in water. People are like, oh, it's got to go back into the water. No, you put them in that tap water, it'll kill them. The salt water, all right? And that's what it has to be. It can't be tap water because it's got chlorine and everything else in it. It'll kill them, basically smother them, okay? So what we're going to do today is we're going to show you how to prepare these and get these ready for service, okay? So what we have to do is we have to treat this animal with respect in the sense of what it's for, okay? And when the chefs would process these back in the day, they would just grab them and just start ripping appendages off, okay? Grab the legs, twist, pull, take the body out, right? That's not humane, okay? A lot of times people would just take them and add the boiling water and throw them in the boiling water, okay? When the ACF started their certification test, they said, hey, you got to do this the right way, right? And I've been there watching chefs, especially for the executive chef test, where they wind up, this guy, one time when he was testing, you have to bring your own lobster. So he brought his own lobster and he did what I just showed you. He started pulling it apart without dispatching the creature first, okay? And what I mean by dispatching is killing it, right? And so he wound up failed the test because of that. He had some other sanitation violations. This was number one because this is one of the first things he did. He grabbed and started just ripping it apart.